I co-founded MIDIOR 20 years ago with my business partner, Michael Goldberger. We started as a successful product team at a tech firm in the mid-'80s and left that in the early '90s to start our own software company. Following its sale in 1996, we launched MIDIOR with an initial focus on supporting product and technology teams on their quest to build value. 20 years later, we are still at it. Two practices, same focus, same passion. If you're participating in this webinar, you already know that your job as a product professional is to deliver the numbers while at the same time build the future. Every day you must make trade-offs. You juggle requests for new features and weigh those against the value of addressing issues. You reprioritize your marketing spend in desired segments, and you refocus development resources as the reality of your target markets and customer demands evolve. All of this is done against the backdrop of your annual plan. But the only thing you can be sure of at the beginning of any year is that your plan, and here I mean your product plan, is wrong. Because of course you can't predict the future, be it your competitors' moves or your customers' behaviors. You can only prescribe success for your products or services by adjusting their flight plan when the plane is in the air. I'm often asked how to manage this reality, given the daily crises that demand a product manager's attention, offset by an endless series of meetings and the need for rapid decisions. So, today, I thought I would share a framework I've been using for as many years as I've been supporting products and product people. It's called the Product Market Advisor. How many times have you come to a meeting to establish product priorities or make decisions about which features to add or which markets to focus on, only to emerge 2 hours later feeling like there was no forward progress? The challenge is that all too often a lot of time is consumed with the stories and experiences of the people around the table. And while stories are always helpful for context, they're insufficient on their own to drive decisions, since they are typically based on memory and can be grounded in emotion, which creates product perceptions that blur objectivity. At MIDIOR, we use the Product Market Advisor as our basis for evaluating products in the context of their target markets and driving discussions and decisions. Like our other frameworks, such as the Competition Cube and the Market Map, it's logical and useful. In particular, it presents an easy way to think about products and markets, and it yields good basis for prioritizing investment decisions and evaluating market segments. The output of an assessment using the Product Market Advisor is a heat-mapped grid that creates a solid basis for team discussions. It supports product professionals by representing what they know to be true about the market, the product, the numbers, so that they do not need to fall back on what they feel to be right. Our tagline at MIDIOR is changing the way you think. So my goal here is to change the way you think about assessing your products in the context of their target markets and using the results as a key basis for driving discussions and decisions. There are many ways to think about your product. We think about products in relation to the problems they solve or the needs they address, as well as in terms of the competition that's out there. As product people, we also think about products in terms of their target markets. We typically make our decisions and do our planning from this point of view. We think about development roadmaps from this perspective. We construct market messages tuned to target segments and generate prospect lists for sales at this level. Products in the context of their target markets will be my focus today. To start off, I'm going to use an everyday product as my example, even though this works for everything from financial services to industrial products to technology. Let's use coffee as our product, and in particular, coffee pods. If you know me, you know that I love coffee. The first purchase in every business I founded has been a coffee maker. If I put myself in the shoes of the product manager for coffee pods at Green Mountain or Starbucks or Nespresso, I know that I could quickly get overwhelmed by the many drivers for new features in my marketing spend. So many different machines, so many ways to buy in the supermarket, at a cafe, online. So many types of consumers and places to drink coffee, you get the picture. Making choices about where to put my focus and energy, what should be on my development roadmap, and where I should focus my marketing and sales efforts is a puzzle. I need a way to organize my products, think about the plan, have team discussions, make decisions, and communicate those priorities. Similarly, if I'm the product manager for, say, an enterprise software product, such as a customer relationship management system like Salesforce or one from Oracle, I have an equally complex set of challenges. Who are my buyers today? Is it the business line or is it IT? What about the users and the influencers? How big a company do you need to be to have a CRM? Are the features different for smaller firms versus bigger ones? Does it change across countries or even continents? I have a finite amount of resource in terms of people and dollars and myriad ways to spend them, so I need to make smart choices. Whether you are responsible for coffee pods or CRMs, you need to facilitate constructive conversations and make informed decisions on product priorities and directions. To involve a team or group without slowing things way down, you need a way to discuss your product's opportunity and its success in the context of its target markets without solely relying on opinions and anecdotes. On your screen, you can see an example of what a product market advisor grid for coffee pods might start out like. To make a product market advisor grid, you need to define your target market. You do this by identifying two angles of market segmentation, i.e. two market segment criteria. One that describes something about who the product or service is sold to, so the buyer or the user, and the other that describes something about how or where the product is bought or sold. The first criteria is about the who, the type of consumer or buyer. For coffee pods, we've used gender, male or female, and age, defined by age bands here. These are represented as our row names. For our second criteria, the how or where the product is bought or sold, we're using a combination of the point of purchase type or the sales channel, in this case supermarkets or cafes, and the geography of the purchase, in this case U.S. regions. These are our column headings. Now look at an example starter grid for enterprise CRM software. The first criteria, that who, should describe our buyer. In this case, the rows describe the buyer in terms of the department making the purchase decision. For our second criteria, the how or the where, let's use the way sales teams are often organized. The columns represent geographical region and then company size as determined by revenue, which is a typical way for sales to be organized. Of course, we could have used other criteria for company size, such as number of employees or number of customers, but here we're using standard revenue bands. Now that we have our grids, let's put them into action. We start by making our grids in Excel, and as you can see on both the coffee pod grid and the CRM grid, there are many cells or mini market segments to assess. To get down to the business of populating your grid, give yourself some time and space to focus. You'll answer the following two questions for each mini market segment represented by a cell. Is this product with its current capabilities and features competitive for this segment? And has this product achieved its market penetration goals as measured by market share or revenue or number of customers? For coffee pods made by Starbucks then, I would ask if my product is sufficiently competitive to be desirable for purchase and consumption by the various groups represented by gender and age in each channel and region. The answers will be some combination of yeses and nos. Now, of course, this presupposes that the person creating the grid actually has a way to establish an informed opinion, or even better, real data to allow them to answer the questions and fill in the cells. So how might you determine competitiveness? A product manager could base their answer strictly on experience and perception. In fact, statistics are in his or her favor here because a product's competitiveness in each segment will get compared against competitiveness in other segments, and this will ensure a sufficient level of accuracy. A product manager could also use a more formal perception map that's grounded in research, data from interviews or surveys with internal stakeholders or customers or experts or some combination. Or they could base it on a formal assessment of capabilities versus needs, or a competitive analysis that looks at features in each segment. What about figuring out if a product has achieved market penetration goals? Well, this one is easier because you can actually use numbers. For example, market share percentages, if you have them, or whether or not you've achieved target revenue in the particular microsegment represented by a cell. You can even use whether you've reached your number of customers goal in each segment. All of these provide sufficient basis for whether you have a strong or weak market position. Ask these questions for each cell represented in the grid and log the answer in that cell. At MIDIOR, we like to color code these, but letter combinations on their own will also work. Once the task is complete, which can be tedious depending on how granular your segments are, you've succeeded in creating a product market advisor grid for your product for its target market. The answers to the questions will yield one of 4 different scenarios. The first scenario, a yes, yes, we like to call market leader, and I'll talk about each of these in turn on the next few slides. The second scenario, a no, yes, we like to call product risk. The third scenario, a yes, no, we like to call market risk. And the fourth scenario, a no, no, we like to call gap. Assuming you can prioritize the segments and that you don't want to go through this exercise again with 2 different angles of market segmentation, you have created a visual that represents your product in the context of market subsegments, which are represented by the cells, as well as a potential recipe for focus and prioritization of your resources. If you answered yes to both questions, you appear to be in good shape in terms of both product competitiveness and market penetration for the segment in question. Here, where you have a yes, yes, we call that market leader, and the likely prescription for this segment is steady as she goes. In this scenario, you would probably continue to make incremental investments in your product, maintain your spending levels on marketing programs, and continue with your current sales tactics. In our second scenario, where we have a no, yes, and we call it product risk, you've determined that your product is not competitive in terms of features and functions, but that it has realized its target market penetration. In this case, your product needs to be tuned or revamped, although you can continue with your marketing programs and sales tactics because they seem to be working. One situation where this scenario would occur is with a mature product that's been successful. If a product has sustained success over time, it's likely that significant development has not been necessary. If you find yourself in this position, you know that if your product is not competitive today, though, it can easily impact your market share tomorrow. So focusing on features and capabilities should be a priority. A next step might be to conduct some voice of the customer work to better assess your product's current capabilities versus your customer needs, so that you can define new requirements and adapt your product development roadmap. An update to the competitive analysis for this product is probably also in order. In this scenario 3, we have a yes and a no. You've determined that your product is competitive, so it solves customer problems and it's up to date in terms of features and functions, but it has not realized or not yet realized its target market penetration. We call this scenario 3 market risk. In this case, you can continue to roll along with incremental investments in your product, but you probably need to step up or shore up your marketing programs, reassess your key market messages, take a hard look at your sales tactics and core capabilities. Scenario 3 not only occurs with mature products, it's often the situation with a new product since marketing and sales may not be ramped up yet. Voice of the customer work and competitive analysis will provide important inputs to your messaging and programs, but you may need additional help with branding and digital marketing to step up your game. Alternatively, improving market penetration can be all about providing sales with better ways to qualify leads, not to mention a more specific and relevant lead list, and this grid should tee that work up nicely. If you answered no to both questions, you have a lot of work to do on both your product and your programs that support marketing and sales. For micro segments where this is the scenario, you may want to engage your team in a discussion about how important the segment really is. There might even be a go, no-go decisions to consider for this product, especially if the segment is not a priority. Once you've evaluated your product for each of the cells or microsegments on your grid, you'll have a pretty useful visual. It should tell you where you're weak and where you're strong, relatively speaking. On your screen, you see our example using coffee pods. The color key is in the upper right portion of your screen. Market leader, or yes, yes, is represented by the dark blue. You have a competitive offering and a strong market position. Product risk, a no, yes, is represented by the medium blue. You have a non-competitive offering, but you do have strong market position. Market risk, a yes, no, is represented by the light blue. You have a competitive offering, but a weak market position. And a gap, where you answered no and no, is represented by red. You have a weak or non-existent offering and a weak market position. Here we have a fifth color that could be represented, which is for not applicable, and it's represented by gray for use when there are segments that have been deemed irrelevant or will not or ever be targeted. You may also want to look at different arrangements of the rows and columns to make the patterns more obvious. In our coffee pot example, you can see that the gender variable has more correlation than the age variable, so sorting by gender first gives you a stronger signal. In the geographic segments, it appears that Northeast and West are more alike, as are Midwest and South, so we put those next to each other too. You're looking for patterns that will help you prioritize areas of focus. You are not beholden to any preconceived sort orders, so do some experiments and see what emerges. But no matter how you sift and sort, you now have a way to talk about your product in the context of its target market at a pretty granular level. At the beginning of this webinar, I indicated that this grid is appropriate for all kinds of products. In fact, our practice focuses on financial services, technology, and industrial products and manufacturing sectors, all with business-to-business products. The coffee example is good because it's easy. On your screen, you see an example of a completed grid for enterprise CRM software, which I also talked about at the beginning. You can see that success in Asia-Pac overall has been limited for Susan's CRM software, with the exception of large and extra-large firms where the buyer has been the sales department. So a discussion about whether there are other priority segments or whether there are segments to simply ignore for the moment is in fact in order. Overall, you can see that success selling to anyone other than sales is in fact a problem. So here again is something worthy of conversation. On this grid, you can also see 3 gray cells, which represent segments that have been determined not to be a priority, where the buyer is IT and the company is extra small. As I just showed, with a completed Product Market Advisor grid for your product in hand, you can get together with your team and have a focused discussion about where to invest, what to change, what to shore up, and so forth. A completed Product Market Advisor grid will help you reprioritize your target markets, your development activities, as well as your spending based on how close or far you are from being able to satisfy a particular micro segment and its priority. You have taken the emotion out of the conversation by allowing it to be an input to your answers in each of those cells, product competitiveness and market penetration. This gives you an unbiased, objective basis for discussion. Therefore, instead of spending precious time discussing or debating the situation for your product in a particular market segment, you spend your meeting time focusing on what to do. And the basic prescription, at least at the highest level for each segment represented by a cell, is right in front of you. At the beginning of this webinar, I alluded to the conundrum faced by product professionals every single day, balancing the crisis du jour with all of the other demands, product strategy choices, development direction, key messages for marketing, supporting sales, communications with everyone, and generally having enough experience with both customers and developers to be considered an expert. All of this comes down to having enough time, and while organization and time management skills do help, they don't make more hours in the day. So the trick is to be as efficient as possible with your own time, your time spent in meetings, your time spent communicating, and your time spent making decisions. At MIDIOR, we leverage 3 proprietary frameworks when we support product professionals through insight and analysis projects. The Competition Cube, which we introduced in our last webinar in October, provides an excellent way to think about the competitive landscape for a particular product in the context of a particular problem and set of customers. It forces product managers and product developers to think outside the box about where competition is today and where it might emerge from in the future in order to drive a product strategy, development roadmap, and marketing plan that can keep that product competitive. The Product Market Advisor, which we've covered today, provides a logical framework for assessing and presenting products in the context of their markets. It focuses on two dimensions, product competitiveness and market penetration, and supports product decisions and team discussions on product and market priorities, resource allocation, and annual planning. The market map, which we will cover in a subsequent webinar, is the basis for assessing market opportunities and presenting market sizing. Stay tuned. MIDIOR's Product Market Advisor establishes a basis for decisions and discussions on product strategy, development focus, and resource allocation. A completed Product Market Advisor grid presents a visual representation of product success in the context of target markets. It enables objectivity and clarity and improves the pace and accuracy of decision making. Once you receive materials on our Product Market Advisor grid, I would encourage each of you to consider creating one for all of your products or services.